Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Roderick Rules by Jeff Kinney. This is the second book in the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series. It originally came out in 2008. Now, I'm getting to this book rather late. I've been getting to the whole series rather late. I read Diary of a Wimpy Kid for the first time just last year. And as I said in my review of that book, which I'll link to in the description down below, I absolutely loved it. And my intent at the time actually was to continue through the books in order, in the order that they were published, and see how long they stayed good. But my library was missing some books. It was missing Diary of a Wimpy Kid by Roderick Rules, and it was missing the third book, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Last Straw. So I had to jump to the fourth book, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Dog Days, which, as I said in my review, was not nearly as good as the original Diary of the Wimpy Kid, and it struck me that in Dog Days it was just largely a retread of the same plot lines, storylines, and jokes that had been in the original Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I had been curious to come back and read Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Roderick Rules, though, and just see if it was any good. If maybe the author had two good books in him before he started to run out of ideas. And even though it wasn't in my school library, these books are widely available in Vietnam. They've been very popular in Vietnam, both in English and Vietnamese translation. But I didn't want to pay full price for it. I mean, a library book is one thing, but not that these books are bad. They're quite enjoyable, and even though I complained about Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Dog Days, and Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Cabin Fever, I believe was the other one I read, they were pleasant to read. They were almost addictive to read, to keep flipping through the pages to kind of see the payoffs to the jokes, or just kind of see what the next crazy thing was going to be. So they're very... Once you pick them up, it's very hard to put it down. It's very easy to just blaze through it. But you do finish them off quite quickly. This particular book, actually, I picked up just today, and I think finished it in about 2 hours. I don't know. I wasn't timing myself. It was less than 3, though. Maybe it was 2.5 hours. So, I don't want to pay $7 US for that experience. And not only are they very quick reads, but as enjoyable as they are to read, I think once you finish them, there's nothing really that sticks with you. They're you read them, you immediately forget them, you move on. There's no lasting value that you would get from these. And that's probably true of a lot of books, but in this particular case, I think that, combined with the fact that you just blaze through it so quick, made me reluctant to pay full price. But then this afternoon, I saw this book in a used bookstore for only 80,000 Vietnamese dong, which in the exchange rate is, about $3.50, and that struck me as reasonable. Even though I finished it off in a couple hours, it was an enjoyable couple hours. And I'm happy to report that this book is good. So the author had at least two good books in him before he started to run out of ideas. And actually, I've been informed by some of my friends on BookTube that actually it's not the case that these decline in quality predictably over time. There are apparently a few more good books mixed in here. But yeah, for my money, Roderick Rules was one of the good books. It was similar to the humor of the first book, and yet different. So one of the things I complained about in Dog Days and in my review of Cabin Fever is that they were just recycling the exact same jokes and plot lines. Here, we're not there yet. The author has not run out of ideas, so there are all new jokes and all new plot lines. It's the same setting, but it's largely new jokes and plot. And as the title implies, the book largely focuses on the main character's relationship with his older brother, Roderick. Now, I was using the word plot earlier. Plot's the wrong word. I shouldn't say plot. This book has no plot. What it does have is a collection of, I don't know, collection of little anecdotes or collections of little events, collections of little stories that are largely unconnected to each other. And here's where the first book is a little bit better. The first book had some things that got set up early in the book, like the cheese, which got paid off at the end. This book doesn't have that, even though it occasionally has stuff that you think is going to get paid off. So, for example, the main character's father develops this obsession with setting up a Civil War battlefield in the basement. And he becomes very concerned that the boys or their friends are going to wreck his battlefield. So he starts telling the youngest one that there's a monster in the furnace. The main character's friend Rowley, he says the basement is off limits. So that's all set up perfectly. Doesn't go anywhere, but you expect as you turn the pages that there's going to be some reemergence of this Civil War set in the basement. And then it doesn't. And we get some references to the basement. So the Roderick's band is playing in the basement, and you think, okay, the basement, the Civil War set, that's going to turn into something, but it doesn't. There are other references to the basement. The main character, Greg, gets locked in the basement when Roderick throws his party. That's somewhere here. You think maybe that's going to pay off with the Civil War set, but it doesn't. The payoff with the Civil War set, such as it is on Thanksgiving. The dad is showing the Civil War set to his brother Joe, Uncle Joe, and he slaps him on the back, and I think it looks like a few pieces get knocked over. And that's it. That's the payoff to all that. There is no big disaster with the Civil War set. And other things like that where... Okay, sorry. Here's an exception. This is a plot point that pays off later. Roderick throws a party. They think they get away with it. And then several pages later, the dad discovers a picture of the party. And then they spend the next several pages in trouble because of the party. Yeah, largely there's no... Some of the stuff that's set up in the beginning, which you would think is going to pay off, largely doesn't pay off. But the individual episodes are still pretty funny. This book, being only the second book in the series, does pick up with some of the plot points immediately following the previous book. So he goes to school and everybody remembers he has the cheese touch. This is something that happened at the end of the previous book. By the time I think you get down the line in the series, there's no longer chronology. It's just like, The Simpsons, where it's perpetually, these characters aren't aging. They're just perpetually stuck in the same grades, is the impression I get. Take me with a grain of salt. This is only the fourth book in the series I've read so far. But that's the impression I got from the ones further down the series. The Jokes in here are decent. I don't think there was anything that made me laugh out loud the way the first book did. The first book, I think, had some genuine laugh out loud moments. This one, not quite as much, but small chuckles from me and interesting. Uh, and Yeah, what is there really to say about this? According to Wikipedia, I think that these books started life as a web comic, and you can see that. I'm not sure if these particular stories were part of the web comic at one point, but you can certainly imagine that they might have been. Otherwise, you can certainly see the influence of the web comic, where it's just a series of little humorous short stories. Just go on for a couple pages and then on to the next one. So I think I'm going to finish the review here. I know I usually ramble on for much longer during my reviews, although it's been 11 minutes, so that's even when I'm trying to be brief, I still manage to ramble on for a bit. Anyways, there's not really that much more to say about it. Entertaining to read, fun, quick, finished it off in a couple hours. Not worth $7, but for $3.50, sure. Pretty forgettable, but pretty fun to read at the same time.